Hi everyone, I'm Monique. Welcome to New Bear. Today I'm showing you how to make something called knotted cord. If you haven't heard of knotted cord before, it's probably because it doesn't sit under the tatting umbrella, because it's not tatting. It's a bit like clunies in that clunies aren't tatted, they're woven, but we still love using them in our designs. I had trouble finding the knotted cord at first, probably because I didn't know the name of what I was searching for, but I also wasn't sure which craft it belonged to. Thanks must go to Nanetta for directing me to the Encyclopedia of Needlework. There is so much in this book. I may have become a little sidetracked within the pages, but towards the end of the book, under the title Miscellaneous Fancy Work, is the name of my mystery technique, the knotted cord. My new bookmark pattern has knotted cord in the first 2 rounds of the design, so I'm going to show you how to make knotted cord as I explain these rounds of the Penelope bookmark. Now, this isn't a tag along. Penelope is a paid pattern, so I'm not showing the whole pattern or giving stitch counts today. But as I mentioned earlier, the knotted cord isn't a tatting technique, and as this may be your first time seeing it, I thought a video might be helpful. The pattern does have photos with step-by-step instructions, but I know some tatters prefer a video, so now you'll have both. There are timestamps down below if anyone wants to skip the pattern explanation and go straight to working the knotted cord. Let's get started. I'm working in size 10 thread because it makes it much easier for you to see, even though it gives me a pretty chunky cluny. So this is cluny A1. You can see I've popped a stitch marker on the bottom loop, and now I'm going to close my loom. That stitch marker gives me somewhere to join back to in later rounds. Setting up for our second cluny. So that I have the small gap between the first and second cluny, I'm going to place a stitch marker on the left side of my loom. I'm going to bring that down and hold it over the top, like so. Hitch your loom as normal, but bring that hitch so it sits on the top side of that stitch marker. You can see that's going to give us a little gap. And now weave your second cluny as normal. Next we have the bare thread space, the knotted cord, another bare thread space, and the next cluny. The bare thread space needs to be the width of your stitches because a normal chain comes across the bare thread space with an alligator join in later rounds. So it's going to sit like that. So this bare thread space needs to be the width of your stitches. If the bare thread space is too big, then this chain will have too much freedom to move and your bookmark will be sloppy. If the bare thread space is too small, the chain won't fit and your bookmark won't sit flat. So we're about to work the bare thread space, but to do that we need to set up for the knotted cord. That's going to make sense in a minute. So holding the cluny in your right hand, wrap the left thread around your left pinky, clamp that down to tension the thread, and bring your index finger up behind the thread to create a loop. Transfer the cluny to your left hand. Wrap the thread on the right side around your right pinky, clamp that down, take your thumb behind the thread and loop it underneath and up. You'll notice my left loop is higher than my right. We're ready to create the bare thread space as we make the first stitch of our knotted cord. Now you might like to do the bare thread by eye, or you might like to use a gauge. It's totally up to you. But as I mentioned before, the bare thread space needs to be very accurate I'm going to show you how to do the knotted cord without a gauge so you have an understanding of what we're doing, and then I'll show you the easiest way of using a gauge for anyone who's interested. Okay, with the index finger of your right hand, reach over the top of the first blue thread, hook the second blue thread and pull it behind the orange. Drop the thumb on your right hand and scoop the orange through the blue. Transfer the cluny from your left hand to your right, dropping your left index finger and tensioning the blue thread at the same time. Remember, we need a bare thread space here, so I'm not going to pull that all the way down. You can see I've got a little gap there. Now that that first stitch is made, my blue thread can loop around my thumb instead of my index finger. My left finger comes through the back of the orange, scoops the blue, pulls a loop through, the cluny transfers to my left hand. I drop my right index finger and tension my orange thread. We're just going to repeat that. We have 10 stitches, so each loop is one stitch. We've done 2, so we have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. When you've finished, pass your shuttle through that last loop and tension your blue loop. Now we need to leave a bare thread space and then continue with cluny A3. So this is very similar to what we did when we put the stitch marker in to give us a small gap between our clunies. The only difference is we need to use a slightly larger gauge because we want a bigger gap for our bare thread space. So set your loom up, hitch the loom, and as you pull that down, I'm going to pop a gauge in the side and my loom hitches to the other side of that gauge. That gives me my bare thread space here. And now I can start weaving that cluny. Once you've worked a few wraps of your cluny, you can take your gauge out because that bare thread space is now secured. So we have cluny A1, our tiny gap here, A2, our bare thread space, our knotted cord, our bare thread space, cluny 3, then you'll do another small gap and cluny 4. Now I'm just going to go straight into working the knotted cord because I want to show you how to do it if you're using a gauge. Obviously fine thread makes this a lot harder to hold on to, and our hands already have a lot to juggle. So we're going to make that first stitch, make it higher than needed, pop your gauge in, and tension your stitch down. Once you've worked the second stitch, that's now secure, and you can pull the gauge out. The Penelope Bookmark is an advanced pattern and is available from my Etsy store. I'll leave links down below. I hope you enjoy the design. I'd love it if you'd share your work in the New Bear Tatting group on Facebook, as well as any other tatting groups you might be in. I'll see you next time.